Welcome everyone! As I said in one of my latest videos, I was going to show you more of Boris Spassky's many great games, and this was just a crushing victory from when he was still a junior actually, only 12 years old, and it's also a good example of how the isolated queen's pawn can help in attacking your opponent. Let's just get started right away. This was played in St. Petersburg in 1949, and he faced Sergey Avtonomov. Spassky had white and opened with d4, d5, and after c4, it's the queen's gambit accepted, so black is giving up his center pawn for white's flank pawn, and while white spends time regaining the pawn, black usually expands on the queen side with a6, b5 and bishop to b7. Sometimes white aims to regain the pawn immediately with e3, which is also okay, but it does allow black to play e5, which often results in an isolated queen's pawn position like this. That is not to everyone's taste. Going back, Spassky went knight to f3, which doesn't allow e5. Black developed his knight as well. e3, e6. Black typically develops this bishop on e7 or d6. Also, black wants to attack white's center with c5, and if white takes on c5, then the bishop could recapture. White won his pawn back, c5. Now white doesn't want to help black develop, of course, he castles. a6, as mentioned, b5 and bishop b7 is the plan. Queen e2, white wants to go rook to d1 opposite the black queen, and the queen also supports the advance of the e-pawn, which is one of white's main goals. b5, the bishop retreats. And now knight to c6 was played by black, which is not that common. Sometimes the knight is better on d7, and black already knows he wants his light square bishop on b7, so by just going bishop to b7 here, black keeps his options open. Black probably wanted to put pressure on d4 as soon as possible, because after knight to c3, black took on d4, and that is certainly not the best move. It was much more sensible to just develop that bishop to b7, and if then rook to d1, just develop the other bishop and castle as soon as possible. In the game after c takes d4, black is neglecting his development and he is opening up the position when white is clearly better developed, and usually that is asking for trouble. Spassky continued with rook to d1. No need to take, that pawn is pinned to the queen now. White is threatening to take that pawn very soon though, and if white's pawn gets to d5, the black king may be staring directly at the white queen, so black desperately needs the castle as soon as possible. Now this didn't happen in the game, but very reasonable would be bishop to d6 here, and after ed4 just getting the king out of dodge right away. And here black still has issues. White will go for the pawn break d5 anyway. The bishop on b3 supports the pawn is attacking e6 as is the queen, so white is about to crash through on e6 right now. Black's only chance to survive is now knight to a5, planning to knock out that bishop. After pawn takes e6, the knight takes, and after ab3 and bishop e6, there is still bishop to f4. That bishop is pinned to the queen. Now defending with knight to e8 fails, because white just trades and goes queen to e5. The pin is still in effect, and black loses the piece and the game. Black's only chance is to win a bishop and rook for the queen, like this. And after the rook recaptures, white is definitely still better, but it's not quite winning yet. In the game, however, black decided to finally develop his light square bishop at this point, and now the king is definitely not reaching safety anymore. First of all, e takes d4, now d5 is the big threat. Black tried to cover the d5 square with the knight and bishop, or even blockading with the knight on d5 if allowed. But was Spassky going to allow that? No, d5 came anyway, and after knight takes, black must have thought he was safe, but he's not. Maybe you'd like to pause the video right now and find white's next move. I will carry on. White's winning move is bishop to g5. After bishop g5, both knights are pinned, the e-pawn was already pinned, black's position is just dreadful right now. Bishop to e7 attempts to solve these issues. However, bishop takes f6 was played. Now after bishop takes, the e-pawn is pinned again, so white wins material after bishop takes, and knight takes d5. And knight takes is of course also out of the question because of rook takes queen. Therefore, black can only recapture like this, but it doesn't end there. Knight takes d5, bishop d5, and bishop takes d5 was next. Now black has to recapture with the e-pawn, and white has succeeded in opening up lines to the black king. And remember, white only had to sacrifice that d-pawn to get this. It's time to go in for the kill. Knight to d4. Now both knight to f5 and knight to c6 are deadly threats. Black unpins the bishop, but it doesn't matter. Knight to f5. Now the bishop is targeted twice. Black's queen is stuck defending now. h5 was played, which does stop the queen from invading to h5 and h6, but now another great move. Rook takes d5. Now as I said, the queen has to defend the bishop, so the rook wants to deflect the queen. It doesn't matter what black does anymore. After queen to c7 to continue its defensive duty, white can simply go, for example, queen to d2, threatening with rook to d7, and if rook to d8, knight takes e7, now the rook lacks a defender, and after rook takes d5, the knight recaptured, and black simply dropped the piece. In the game, black kinda gave up really, he just took the rook anyway, but after queen takes e7 check, king to g8 and queen takes f6, Avtonomov resigned because he's not coming back from queen g7 mate or knight to e7 check for king and queen. Now there's a great example of 1. How to use the isolated queen's pawn, and 2. Punishing your opponent for neglecting development and king safety. Black could have played better, but Spassky has won so many great attacking games like this, I'm going to have a lot of fun picking some new ones to show you guys. Anyway, hopefully you liked the game too. If you did, you would do me a big favor by liking the video and subscribing. Check out the playlist for more great games in the meantime. I'll be seeing you guys again soon, and take care.